They showed up in uniforms that weren't real, pretending to be cops, pretending to have power. But when one of them slapped a black man's wife in her own yard, they thought he would stay quiet. What they didn't know was that her husband wasn't just any man, he was a Navy SEAL. And that night, he broke their faces. The story you're about to hear isn't just about confrontation. It's about intimidation, prejudice, and what happens when fake authority meets a man trained to fight real wars. Stay with me. This isn't just some random neighborhood drama. This is a story that tests every line between fear, courage, and justice. A man who had seen combat overseas came home to a neighborhood where some thought power was measured by fake badges, empty threats, and intimidation. The events that followed left neighbors divided, the police scrambling, and an entire homeowners association forced to answer some uncomfortable questions. How far can you go before crossing a line? And what happens when the person you try to intimidate is trained to defend what matters most? Marcus and Danielle had been living in their suburban neighborhood for just under a year. They chose the area for its promise of safety: trimmed lawns, freshly painted fences, kids riding bikes, and neighbors waving as you drove by. It looked perfect. But beneath the veneer of calm, there was tension. Marcus, a 34-year-old Navy SEAL veteran, had seen combat, lived through firefights, and spent years mastering discipline, resilience, and strategy. Danielle, his wife, was smart, calm, and fiercely protective of their family. On the surface, they were like any other couple, but Marcus's presence brought a silent weight. People could feel it without understanding it. The HOA, however, didn't care about nuance. They were known locally as a self-appointed private police force. Their rules were absurd: fines for minor violations, surveillance cameras that recorded neighbors without consent, and letters threatening escalation over the smallest infractions. Residents whispered that some board members relished the fear they could instill. And Marcus, being black in a mostly white gated community, drew attention. Some neighbors were friendly, others quietly watched, uncomfortable with someone they didn't fully understand. Marcus and Danielle tried to stay invisible. They maintained their yard, followed rules, and avoided confrontation. But the HOA didn't see good neighbors. They saw someone to control. It started small. A note taped to their front door, accusing them of letting the grass grow half an inch too long. Danielle laughed it off, tossing the paper in the trash. Then came a $75 fine for leaving a trash bin out too long. Marcus paid without complaint. He had better things to do than fight petty battles. But soon things escalated. Late-night knocks, windows rattling from unidentified vehicles parked near the house, and subtle threats began. One neighbor whispered that the HOA had sent a man to teach a lesson to anyone who questioned their authority. Marcus brushed it off, confident in his ability to handle anything, but Danielle noticed the growing unease in the air. Then, one afternoon, the real tension arrived at their doorstep. Two men appeared, dressed in dark tactical uniforms, vests strapped tight, radios clipped to their shoulders. Their badges looked official enough to intimidate anyone who didn't pay close attention. "HOA enforcement," one said, voice firm. "We need to talk." Danielle froze. She'd never heard of HOA enforcement officers. But the men pushed a paper toward her, a violation notice, claiming her house didn't meet community standards. "Please, my husband will handle this," Danielle said cautiously. The taller man leaned in, smirking. "If you don't comply, we'll escalate. You don't want us escalating." It wasn't a friendly warning. It was intimidation. Danielle felt a chill. She took a step back, gripping the notice as if it were a shield. When Marcus came home later that day, Danielle told him everything. Her voice trembled, not out of fear of him, but fear of the men outside their yard. Marcus listened carefully, his jaw tightening with each word. "You don't worry," he said, calm but deadly serious. "Next time they come, I'll handle it." Danielle tried to smile. She knew he meant it. She had seen Marcus in action overseas, seen him stay calm under fire, seen him make split-second decisions that saved lives. But she also worried, would he be risking himself over this? 2 days later, the men returned. Danielle was outside, watering flowers, unaware that Marcus had come home early. "Didn't we tell you this had to be fixed by today?" one of them barked. "My husband is handling it. You can come back when he's here," Danielle responded, trying to assert herself. The shorter man's voice turned sharp. "We don't need your husband's permission. You either listen now or things get rough." Then it happened. The taller one struck, a sharp slap across Danielle's face. The sound cracked through the yard. Birds flew from trees. Danielle stumbled back, hand to her cheek, stunned. Marcus had been inside, seeing everything. In an instant, a switch flipped. The confrontation, military precision meets fake authority. Marcus burst out of the house. His posture, even without uniform, radiated lethal confidence. Every muscle tensed, every movement precise. "You just made a big mistake," he said, voice low and steady. The fake cop tried to act tough. "What are you gonna do about it?" Marcus didn't answer with words. He closed the distance in a flash, grabbing the man's vest, using a practice strike to send him sprawling to the ground. The second man lunged forward, but Marcus was ready. A sharp elbow to the jaw, a leg sweep, and the man crumpled. Neighbors peeked through windows, phones recording. Whispers spread through the street. "Is that a Navy SEAL?" Some cheered, others recoiled. Marcus leaned down, voice dangerous calm. "You ever step foot on my property again, dressed in those fake badges, putting hands on my wife, I will make sure the next thing you're eating is through a straw." Both men scrambled, beaten and humiliated. Within an hour, neighbors were outside. Some offered help, others called the police. Rumors swirled. The HOA scrambled to explain. They were contractors, security, no harm intended. But the damage was done. Their intimidation tactics had backfired, and Marcus had shown them exactly what it meant to cross the wrong person. The videos recorded by neighbors spread online. Overnight, Marcus became a symbol, a man who defended his family and refused to bow to fake authority. Danielle, shaken but proud, received messages from neighbors she'd never spoken to, thanking her for being part of the courage shown. The real police arrived and took statements. They confirmed. The two men had no legal authority, no badge, no right to detain anyone. Assault charges were filed against the fake HOA cops. HOA board members were contacted. Their explanations faltered under scrutiny. Contracts and payment records were subpoenaed. Marcus, calm but vigilant, cooperated fully. He didn't want revenge. He wanted accountability. Meanwhile, Danielle's cheeks swelled, a physical reminder of the threat. But her husband's presence, his calm command of the situation, had protected her in a way that no police report could. The story went viral. Social media exploded with support for Marcus. People praised him for defending his wife, holding the HOA accountable and exposing a culture of intimidation. Hashtags circulated. HOA fraud, Navy SEAL defense, protect your own. Some critics argued Marcus had gone too far, that a Navy SEAL shouldn't bring violence into a neighborhood dispute. But many defended his actions, pointing out that these men had crossed clear lines, slapping a woman, pretending to have authority. Local news stations picked up the story. Interviews with Marcus and Danielle highlighted their measured approach, calm, deliberate, and focused on justice, not revenge. This story isn't just about a husband defending his wife. It's about power, race, and perception. Marcus's actions exposed a truth too many ignore. Some communities operate under the illusion of authority, and some people exploit fear. Marcus had choices: ignore it, call the police, or act. He chose to protect. But he did so with discipline, precision, and accountability. That's the difference between someone who reacts and someone trained to act effectively. Danielle reflected on it later. It wasn't just his training, it was his heart. He knew what was right and he didn't hesitate. The two contractors faced charges: assault, harassment, impersonating officers. The HOA faced lawsuits from residents demanding transparency, proper oversight, and a stop to these intimidation tactics. Marcus and Danielle considered moving, but the couple stayed, partly to ensure the neighborhood didn't lose another voice for justice. Their presence became a deterrent, a reminder that intimidation only works when fear goes unchallenged. Fake authority can only go so far before reality intervenes. Training, discipline, and courage are powerful tools, whether in combat or on your own lawn. Standing up for family isn't just noble, it's necessary. Fear loses its power when confronted with preparation and clarity. Marcus's story reminds us, some battles aren't overseas. Some are fought in the yards of our own homes. And sometimes the people you least expect to confront injustice are exactly the ones you hope will. And if you think that was the end, it was. When the HOA tried to retaliate legally, Marcus found himself facing unexpected courtroom drama, public scrutiny, and a system unprepared for someone who refused to back down. You won't believe what happened next. Click here to watch the full continuation. You'll see intimidation meet strategy, fear meet discipline, and a man determined to protect what matters most. If you got value from this story, hit that subscribe button because more stories like this, real, dramatic, and unapologetic, are coming. Don't miss them.